What's good, y'all? Welcome back to Gen X Gon' Give It To Ya. I'm your host, Deshanta. Today's episode is about to be a good one because we're talking about something that raised us, shaped us, and gave us some of the best memories we have, music. And not just any music. We're talking about the incredible legacy of black music. Soul, funk, R&B, gospel, disco, jazz, blues, hip-hop. Come on now. Y'all already know where I'm going with this. Because if you're Gen X, music wasn't just something playing in the background. Music was our life. And today, I've got somebody with me who understands that on a whole different level. His mission is to celebrate, document, and preserve the music and the stories behind the music that have influenced generations. Please welcome Samuel Wilson Jr., the creator and host of the Black Soul Music Experience podcast. Thank you, Samuel, so much for being here today. You're just awesome. I know that you grew up in the Bronx. Where did you live?
I lived in all parts of the Bronx after I was moved from Harlem, because I'm originally from the village of Harlem in New York City. And after my parents were divorced in the summer of 1969, I first lived on the west side of the Bronx. I lived on Harrison Avenue between West Tremont and West Burnside Avenue, a couple of blocks away from the number 4 subway station, and then moved to the east side. I once lived in Parkchester on Metropolitan Avenue, right before you hit the Metropolitan Oval, where there used to be a Cornell's children's store, and Macy's is still there. And there used to be 3 movie houses. You had the Palace, the Lowe's American, and the Circle, not too far away from the number 6 subway station. And then when I moved back to the village of Harlem, for a while, and then moved back to the Bronx and lived in the Wakefield section. I lived on East 226th Street between Bronxwood and Barnes Avenue. And we first had a 2-family house. My mom and I, we lived on the street level. And yes, there was a garage, but the outside garage for those houses back then. And then I moved to Rylander Avenue, between Eastchester Road and Stillwell Avenue by Jacoby Hospital, where my mother had worked at for many years, and then moved to the Baychester section. I lived on Kingsland Avenue, and then later moved to Eastchester Heights, who used to be known as Hillside Homes, and then later moved to the Wakefield section by the number 5 Dyer Avenue station, last stop, and then now present, I'm back at Eastchester Heights, because I'm close by to the BX30 and 31 and the Westchester B-Line bus and the express bus.
Uptown, baby. Uptown, baby. What are some things you like doing in the Bronx?
Shopping, bike riding, and going to the movies.
What type of movies did you enjoy watching?
I like the comedy and sci-fi and the adventure movies like Indiana Jones, and a couple of spy movies like the 007 James Bond movies.
And did you go with friends, or was this something that you snuck out of the house and just dipped in real quick and was back home before your parents even knew what happened? Because that's how Gen X was. Don't even front.
Yes, so I'm gonna say both. One time I kind of sneaked out of the house and I was just getting ready to see Star Trek 2, but it was playing in Midtown. So then I kind of took the 5 train and came back home. And the other ones, I went by myself. I would tell my mom, say, I want to go check out that movie.
That's how I was too. Regarding movies, it just happened that way. But then I always had a friend too. It went back and forth, but I was always down for a movie. What schools did you attend growing up?
I attended kindergarten in Washington Heights inside a Presbyterian church in Manhattan. And then I went to 2 private schools, one in the Gramercy Park section of Manhattan and the other one on the Upper West Side. And I was taken out of private schools when I in the 3rd grade of 1976, and that's when I went to PS 160 in Section 5, and then PS 108 on Neal Avenue, right off of Williamsbridge Road, and then I went to IS 144 on Gunther and Lodovick Avenue, and then went to Harry S. Truman High School.
How did you end up at 160?
Well, I first realized I didn't know I got left back in the third grade. So it was my mother and my stepfather. They pulled me out of private school in Manhattan. So for the reason, I don't know, and I didn't ask. They just told me that you're going to go to a better school with a better education. Your reading grades was kind of like, ugh. So that's why they put me in PS 160, the Walt Disney School in Section 5.
Are there any teachers that made an impact on your life that you can remember?
Well, in PS 160, I remember Miss Gala, and she was nice to me. And when I was at PS 108, Mrs. Bender, she was nice to me and making sure that homework is done, make sure you behave in class and just do the right thing.
What was your first job?
My first summer job was at St. Luke's Episcopalian Church, and this was from the summer jobs at St. Andrews on Castle Hill Avenue. So when I got my first summer job, on the day after the 4th of July, 1982, the problem was that all of the counselors got IDs and I was the only one that didn't get any IDs. So that was the reason? And then they called up St. Andrews the next day and they said, you're going to be transferred down to St. Margaret's. I didn't ask why. They just transferred me down. Was it because I didn't get my ID? I didn't ask. I was kept silent, and I didn't tell my mom on that Friday and let them know that I got transferred to St. Margaret's on East 156th Street, right near Prospect Avenue. They were like, you're going to that dangerous area.
Reflecting on that now, why do you think you didn't get an ID, or why do you think you didn't get transferred?
Well, here's the reason.
Or that you did get transferred, excuse me.
Yeah. Well, here's the reason. Our phone was not in service and didn't get no calls from St. Andrews. You know, we didn't pay the phone bill on time, so that the phone was out of service. And by the time that I got a letter from St. Andrews saying you got the summer job, but by the time I got to St. Luke's and didn't realize that I need an ID, and that's what happened. Just been transferred down to St. Margaret's, and I've been there from day 2 all the way until the last day in mid-August.
So it's a communication thing. What made you choose your first job? Like, why the church? Not knocking the church at all. I'm just curious.
Well, when I was a daycare counselor at St. Margaret's Church, where they had a community center, the salary was good. That was the main purpose. The salary was good. And the least one, I had to take care of those kids.
So you have an affinity for kids? Kids mean something special to you?
Well, not that much, but I'm kind of used to the ones like from ages from 7 to 9, you know, like at my age. But I wasn't rowdy like those when I was a daycare counselor for them back then.
You could have chosen so many things. Why a daycare counselor?
Well, that was on that roster at St. Andrews. So when my mom and we went to St. Andrews looking for a summer job, that was the only one that was there. And that was for daycare counselors. So they'll assign me to either the one that's close to me or like what happened the day after, they'll transfer me. And I was there 1982. I did not go back there again. And until 1984, Mom said, we're going to have you back for a summer job. So I went back to St. Andrews. And for the first time, someone has spoken about why I'm being transferred to another location. They said this, you have to learn how to travel. So I said to myself, learning how to travel? Are you telling me that I have to go to a neighborhood that is not safe instead of going to the one that is close to home? And still up to this date, I still don't know why they had me transferred down to a place where it's not safe and the ones that's right by me, which is close and safe.
What I've learned is some people are big on rites of passage. It sounds like they were like, all right, this is the opportunity where he needs to learn this, rite of passage. I could be wrong. I'm just saying. What were some of your favorite TV shows or movies growing up?
Well, me growing up, one of my favorite shows was The Brady Bunch, The Odd Couple, Room 222, Love American Style, and Carol Burnett, and some of the other shows like Fat Albert and Nanny and the Professor, All in the Family, and its spin-offs, Maude, The Jeffersons, and Good Times, and Mary Tyler Moore, and Bob Newhart, and don't want to leave out Sanford and Son and Chico and the Man and Alf.
Chico, aw.
Yep.
Aw, yeah. You just went through a whole line of stuff. I'm like, wait, I want to say something. Wait, I want to say something. You forgot Mary Hartman. Mary Hartman. I'm a big Carol Burnett fan. Love American Style that came on, I think, Saturday nights late. I was always up. I don't know why, and sometimes I got access to a TV. Don't hold me accountable. It just happened. But you just threw me back there, so that was awesome. Especially Chico and the Man and Sanford and Son. You just went there. So thank you for that. Favorite celebrity, if you have one?
Favorite celebrity, Sidney Poitier, Harry Belafonte, Richard Pryor, Cicely Tyson, and the new upcoming stars like Denzel Washington and Anthony Mackie. Just those favorites.
It's interesting that you say Anthony Mackie. What was your favorite performance by Anthony Mackie?
The best performance from Anthony Mackie was She Hate Me, and that was a Spike Lee joint. And he played the role of a person who works in the stockbroker business, and then all of a sudden there was something in the stockbrokers that got crashed, and he got a call from someone that says like, hey, you're on the news, and then you got fired in 24 hours. So in order for him to stay alive, his ex-girlfriend, who's now a lesbian, and then in order to stay in your apartment, you got to make babies to different women. I was like, this was something new from that movie. While at the same time, there was dealing with some other things. Spike Lee, was not afraid to discuss the issues, and he'll throw something in that movie in that dealing with, money and then problems in the black communities, not getting all the salaries that they deserve, or like being victims of what happened back then that was never talked about. So shout out to Anthony Mackie and his performance, and shout out to Spike Lee, because anything he say from today's headlines, you gotta give a shout out to those guys.
Absolutely, I agree. And it's funny that you mentioned this, because within the last month, I watched She Hate Me. I saw it back in the day when it came out because I am a big Spike Lee fan and I'm going to support. But I recently watched it, and it was prophetic because it resonated with what we're going through today. We have these companies stealing money, and there's always a scapegoat trying to put all the blame on one person when really you're the one that is facilitating fraud. You're stealing everybody's money. Spike Lee told us about this 20 years ago, and here we are, face value, year after year after year of these companies just finessing to get more money out of people, and then scientists are disappearing. It's this whole big thing. But he's been telling us the truth for years. People just want to discount it as, oh, conspiracy, blah, 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 blah. No, it's in our face right now to this day. So shout out to Spike Lee, like you said. Shout out to Anthony Mackie, because he's come up in the world. When I first saw that, I was like, who's this dude? Because, yeah, basically he was a gigolo, made mad money to have babies. That's the perception that they gave us at the time. But when you reflect on it now, going back to what you said, it's political. And it's about the more money you have, the more you got to take away from somebody else. That's ultimately what I'm getting out of it. So thank you for bringing that up. And that's proper representation right there. Again, shout out to Spike Lee and Anthony Mackie. Thank you. That was a gem. You dropped a gem right there. Are there any favorite TV jingles that you remember?
Yes, that post Super Golden Crisp, Sugar Bear says, can't get enough of Super Golden Crisp. It's got the crunch with punch. And then, the Kool-Aid commercial. I'm sure you remember Kool-Aid.
Oh, yeah.
Kool-Aid. Oh, yeah. It's Kool-Aid. Here comes Kool-Aid, coming to save the day. Here comes Kool-Aid, here comes Kool-Aid, I'm gonna chase your thirst away. So that was the jingle.
This is horrible of me, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, and it's probably going to be edited out. But when you're singing this Kool-Aid jingle, don't you see like a girl bending over like Kool-Aid, shaking the ass, shaking the ass? because that's where our society has gone. But I digress. Favorite cereals or candies?
Favorite cereals: Kellogg's, Frosted Flakes, Fruit Loops, Apple Jacks, Raisin Bran, and those Kellogg's jumbo assortment and variety and snack packs for breakfast. And favorite chocolate candy: M&M's, Peanuts, Snickers, Milky Way, Twix, Goobers, and Raisinets.
Nice. I still eat Raisinets to this day, and this is going to sound horrible because I should be eating better. But dark chocolate Raisinets and popcorn at the movies, it all goes hand in hand. And don't forget the butter. But it's a great combination, and you should try it. Do you play video games? Or did you play video games?
I played video games, but I didn't have video games at home when I was little. So I would either go to my friend's house or I would go to a video arcade. And not all of the video games that I like, but there was one that I liked when I went to the video arcade. There used to be one on Bartow Avenue where Pathmark used to be. It was a game called Intruder. It wasn't like Space Intruders or those other games that you see on Atari or ColecoVision, but this was a little different. It's kind of like Aliens, or like Here Comes the Intruder. You got to go kill those little invaders, and then you hear someone saying, "Out the night must not escape." So that was kind of like the one that I liked, the little that intruder game.
So you walked around shooting people or shooting intruders?
Shooting intruders, in space.
I would love that game. I'm a shooter person. Did you ever beat a game?
Ever beat a game? Yes. I was good at this game called Perfection, the little toy game. You just turn the little thing and you got to come fast in 60 seconds before everything pops out. So that was the game that I like. The one that I keep beating all the time was usually checkers, and I get losing at checkers all the time, and also Connect 4.
Gotcha. 4 across. One more game. That worked perfectly. Do you have favorite superheroes? Were you a comic fan?
Yes, and one of my favorite comic heroes was Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, and the Incredible Hulk.
Why Spider-Man?
Spider-Man was, different, and coming out of the NYC, and then all of a sudden he got bitten by a spider. Peter Parker got bitten by a spider. So then he would disguise him as Spider-Man. He would spin a web. He would go from building to building and catching crooks. And when the cops come, they would take their picture. So as Peter Parker, he would take a picture of that and put that in the newspaper.
What about that attracted you?
So I'm kind of like the cartoon version, but not the one that I usually see when you had the Electric Company and with Spider-Man. Kind of like, not the one that I kind of get used to, but I'm more like the cartoon version of it.
Okay, fair enough. Did you have the opportunity to play Spider-Man in a video game?
Spider-Man, the video game? No.
I recommend it. It's so much fun. That's all. Did you have a villain that you could relate to from their perspective?
A villain that I can relate to? No. And I'll tell you why. Because when I see villains doing evil things like to destroy the city, destroy the world and everything, like that's the bad people, the bad guys and girls. They like growing up, you never had anything that you wanted. So you go after those people, want to destroy everything. So for the villains,
So you can't relate to, and I'm just being devil's advocate, Magneto?
Magneto, not that Magneto. When he had those powers and technolectic powers, I can relate to that, but not all that I can relate to.
Understood. I feel like I relate to the perspective of him fighting for discrimination and bigotry and inequality. So that's why I relate to Magneto. And sometimes extremes have to be taken for there to be change. That's how I feel about anti-heroes versus villains versus heroes. And that was just a question that I had. So let's switch gears a little bit. Did you have a sneaker brand that you rocked faithfully?
Nike. So I had that sneaker back in the 80s. So when my late mother had bought me Nikes, because of the arches and everything. So those are the ones that I have been rocking from back in the 80s and still up to like 2020. So when I don't see that Nikes anymore, and then sometimes, mom bought me a pair of Reeboks. And back then, I had Converse, I had Pro-Keds, and Keds, that's the sister label of Pro-Keds. Those are the ones that I like as well growing up.
Even so, you didn't have a pair of classic Reeboks, black or white?
No, mom just bought, the regular pair of Reeboks. So, I never paid any close attention, but my mom said, oh, look at them Reeboks. They're on sale.
Keyword on sale. Favorite sports teams? Are you into sports?
Yes, I'm into like baseball and the Olympic Games. So for me, baseball, I was a Met fan and then over to a Yankee fan, then went back to a Met fan. And the greatest experience that I will always cherish is that I got a chance to go to Shea Stadium. This was back in May 1972. My mom and I and her friends, we went to Shea Stadium for the very first time. We got a chance to see the New York Mets playing the Cincinnati Reds. I got a chance to see the whole stadium, just like I'd be watching it when the Mets was on Channel 9 back then. But only thing that I missed was like the instant replays, because I'm more like, if I miss something, they'll play the instant replays and everything. And also the sportscasters that I'd be intrigued with.
Do you remember if they won that game?
For the Mets, yes. They beat the Cincinnati Reds. So we didn't stay for the whole thing. We just wanted to get out before everybody starts, it's kind of like crowded and everything.
Old schools do you still watch today?
TV-wise, Sanford and Son, Barney Miller, One Day at a Time, Maude, The Jeffersons, and The Facts of Life, Different Strokes, Benson, and also love me some Johnny Carson, because he'd be coming on 11 o'clock at night on Antenna TV, all of those classic episodes.
I remember watching all of those shows, but you mentioning Barney Miller, What is it that you liked about Barney Miller?
Well, it's a funny show, taking place at 12th Precinct. You got Barney Miller, and then you got all those cops, including Detective Harris, played by Ron Glass, and you had Detective Yamana, played by Jack Sue, and during the first 2 seasons, you had Gregory Sierra, who played Tiano, and all the other characters. But the best episode that I like from Barney Miller is when Wojciech Howitz brought in a box. It was like brownies, but it was covered with hashish. It was like kind of like, like weed or something like that. And all of the cops went crazy when they started eating those brownies mixed with weed in it. They'll be like flowing into another world.
I liked Barney Miller. Favorite music genre and artist?
Oh, genres of black music: gospel, jazz, blues, old school classic soul, old school hip hop. I like a little bit of today's hip hop and R&B, but not a lot. Caribbean, Latin, Afrobeat, blue-eyed soul, disco, go-go, line dances, and the lost classics. One of my favorite singers, still up to this date, I'll have to pick like Elton John and Carly Simon and Carole King. Those are the singers. And Michael McDonald, the Doobie Brothers.
What favorite song do you have from Elton John?
Benny and the Jets, #1 hit.
Benny!
And yeah, that later
Is it
sample,
the lyrics or just because he laid it down? Like
all of the above, he laid it down. And then I would never believe that song would be later sampled for Mary J. Blige. When I hear that song, it was like, what they doing? They're doing Benny and the Jets. And then Mary J. Blige was doing that song Deep Inside, and was like, you were sampling off from Benny and the Jets. I was like,
Benny
wow.
and the Jets. Okay. I feel it. Okay, I feel you. All right, I gotta ask, are you a Jackson 5 fan?
Yes, and I still have my Jackson 5 Greatest Hits LP, and that was a Christmas gift back in 1971. I still have it in good faith. The only thing was when you just tear it off and just stick it on your door. So that was like a, tear off poster ad and everything. But I still got my LP. It's still in good condition, not a scratch yet.
Are you a Star Wars fan?
The original one, yes. With one came out in 1977 and then 1980 and 1983. That was the ones that I loved, those three ones, but not used to those prequels, but I'm kind of referred to the original ones that came out since 1977.
We can talk about those. We ain't got to talk about the other ones. What stands out for you in Star Wars?
What stands out for me in Star Wars, it was good versus evil up against Darth Vader. And I see him in every 3 chapters. I think part 1, did Darth Vader die? And then when I see him in part 2, The Empire Strikes Back, at the almost ending, and when you hear Darth Vader say, Luke, I am your father. And Luke was like, I was like, is this happening? Are you for real? You mean Darth Vader?
So it's safe to say you were on the light side of the Force?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And just because I have to, no judgment, because there's no judgment. But it's episode 4, 5, and 6. I just got to put that out there because somebody will be like, why you didn't tell him? Okay. Episode 4, 5, and 6, but I was with you along the whole way.
Uh-huh.
Great. All right. Twilight Zone fan.
Yes, I am. And
Why?
every Friday night, I will see some of those episodes that come on late night. One of the episodes that I liked was Nightmare at 20,000 feet. You had a young William Shatner before he became Captain Kirk. And he was taken out of the psychiatric ward. And then you look out that airplane window, you see a mysterious monster. And you got to call attendant. There's a monster outside the window. And they looked outside and says, the monster's not there. So he kind of like sneaked in, oh, there's a gun, and you killed that monster. And like the end of the episode, people didn't believe him. But what they saw, it really happened.
Right. That plane was demolished. I always ask those questions because I love me some Twilight Zone. I love me some Star Wars. So it's important that and I love me the Jackson 5. Mm-hmm. So that's like, if I could get that out of y'all, then y'all will tell me anything I want to know. And then the conversation just flows. So those are just the random questions that I'll sometimes ask. You mentioned hip hop earlier and listening, but when hip hop emerged, was that something that you fully immersed yourself in?
At first, I didn't know what it was, but me growing up, I thought hip hop was kind of like the Jamaican version because my stepfather was Jamaican and I would play some of his records. So when I played the singing version, and I would flip it over to the instrumental side. And then I would found out later on that there were some Jamaican DJs who started rapping. And then I never knew that hip hop will originally come from Jamaica and then come bring it to the NYC. And then when my first hip hop song that I first heard was Rapper's Delight by the Sugar Hill Gang. So I was just keep listening to it. I'll be like, hip hop. Hip, the hip, hop, you don't stop the rock, the bang, bang, reggae, I'm just the rhythm to the rhythm of the boogie, the bee. What you hear is not a test, I'm rapping to the beat, cause me and my friends are gonna try to move your feet.
You see, I am
the mic, and I like to say hello to the white, to the brown, the purple, and yellow. First, that's the bang bang, the give it the up, just the rhythm, that the fuck that really this rock. You don't stop, gonna make your body rock. Oh man, when I heard that song, I was like in someone's car. You just hear the middle of the song and you try to get to the bridge. It's like, man, I couldn't hear the rest of the song.
You mentioned the Caribbean influence. Can you shed more light on that?
Yes, the Caribbean influence. When you hear Bob Marley and Peter Tosh and the Mighty Sparrow, and then there are some of the singers like the Mighty Diamonds and Culture. You hear some of their songs, but then it was way before 12-inch singles, and then you hear the song, and then the rappers started rapping to it. So then once you hear the rapping DJs, that's what they were known back in Jamaica, West Indies, and then brought it to the U.S. in the NYC. So that was kind of an influence. But hip hop was a mixture of everything with the beats. They would have some from Jamaica, and then hip hop was influenced by James Brown. So they would sample stuff from James Brown's beats. I was like, I'm hearing something from Boogie Down Productions, and they were sampling from James. And I said, ain't it funky now? And I was like, wait a minute. They sampled all from James Brown. You know, hip hop was influenced, not just only James Brown, but they were influenced by some of the DJs that they were doing from Jamaica, West Indies. So once you hear it, you'll know it, especially when you hear it, those big mama hoofer speakers, when you hear it in stereo, the bass, boom, boom, and it was like, whoa, you'll hear it.
Thank you for sharing that. What movie do you love that we'd least expect?
What movie does least expect? I'm going to go with Sounder. Back in 1972, that starred Cicely Tyson, Paul Winfield, and a young Kevin Hooks. And this was a story about a black sharecropper family. This was during the Great Depression that you didn't see it in the history books, so you hear from a black point of view. And they had a dog named Sound. So then the father was arrested for stealing meat and then was in jail. So the mother and the children bought in cake, for the father. So the son, played by Kevin Hooks, he had to walk through school. And that was the best part of the movie. And by the way, the movie was rated G.
Wow. Do you know if that movie won any awards?
It was nominated for an Oscar. I think Paul Winfield was nominated for Best Actor for Sounder, although they didn't win. Someone else had won.
What career did you choose?
Radio broadcasting, and I'll tell you why. Many people have come to me when I do presentations in church, or when I was doing a presentation when I was at IS 144 in the 8th grade doing a St. Patrick's Day episode. When they heard the voice, everybody was saying, I love your presentation. You have a wonderful voice. Same thing in church. Many of the church members come to me and say, you have a wonderful voice. So then when I getting ready to go to trade school, I went to Center for the Media Arts in the Chelsea section of Manhattan. So when I told my mom that I was going to radio broadcasting, she thought I was nuts. The only thing that she was concerned about is the pay, the salary. Does it pay you? Does it give you like a Social Security and everything? Or you go bring home a little itty bitty paycheck? That's not giving you anything. So then I was turned down by the first choice of radio broadcasting. So the least was graphic art and design. So even though I was joined for fun, but in that field, you got to be quick. You got to know your ruler, your meters, and everything. So best part I like was doing album covers, but that wasn't for me. And the brochures, you have to know your rulers, your in-between 1/2 and your 3/4 and 1/4. The only thing I had to learn was those 1/8 and 4/8 and 1/16. So that was something that I didn't know about. And when I got into the real world, that was a price to be paid. So you got to be quick.
Did that career choice make you happy? Does it make you happy?
For graphic art and design, not that much, because when I got into the real world, when I was working for that graphic office, and I was not that quick. So radio kept calling me. That was my first choice. And ever since I've gotten into radio, and then my mom said, you should sign up an application at CBS. And that's when her cousin was the first black to be hired at CBS. So I worked at Black Rock for 35 years. And then when CBS sold to Westinghouse, and then I said, I gotta have a backup plan. So then I was listening to WVOX, and then a sister station, 93.5 FM, went R&B. My former CBS co-worker in the mail and said, WRTN went R&B. I said, WRTN went R&B. I said, get out of here. This was nothing but format, return radio, or elevator music. That's what we would call it. When you go to the doctor's office, they would play some elevator music. That was WRTN. But when they changed the format to classic soul and today's R&B, I said, okay, let me check this out. So when I went back to WVOX in Christmas Eve, 1994, when I was looking for WRTN, then I found out that it was satellite coming from Dallas, Texas, and the network affiliate was ABC. So when I was working at WVOX, I got a chance to work behind the radio board. I've learned how to use the board operator. And when they heard me on the radio Tuesday evening, 7:30, I was doing the intern. One of the director or board operator that said, "We gotta hire you." So they want me to put me on a Sunday shift. They want me to put me in for 9 o'clock. I said, church comes first. So I have to go to Sunday school and church. So when CBS was sold to Westinghouse in June of 1995, I said, let's do it. And they put me on a regular Sunday shift from 7 p.m., 1 in the morning, Monday morning. I said, let's do it. So I was a regular employee on the first Sunday of August of 1995. I was the technical director for the Irish show and the church news. And then at 5:30, I was on from 5:30 to 9. Now, the format at WVOX was big band and jazz, but it was integrated with talk and information. So after I signed off WVOX at 9 o'clock, I would take care of their sister station, WRTN, because on the weekends, they had the block time programs. I was the technical director for the Indo-Caribbean and the Caribbean programs. I took care of Ken Williams, who once was a radio DJ personality at WLIB. Then he left the station because there was format changes. So he bought block airtime at WRTN. I took care of his things, airing the commercials. And in case if he wasn't there, he would leave a VHS tape to have him play. And at the same time, he took care of Carup, New York. He did the Mace Jamaica pageant. So I was taking care of the board operator and taking care of the live broadcast. So that was a big break for me. And I was there from 1995 until I was laid off at the end of October because computers were moving in. And then I came back for the Christmas Eve shift. The best part I liked for WVOX was the Christmas Eve shift. That was that year when Pix 11 took off the Yule log. And now it's my turn to do my version of the Yule log. So that was the biggest experience that I had in my life.
Kudos to you, and I agree, you do have a really good radio voice.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. What would your child self tell your adult self?
Listen, just listen. And if you do all those things, you will be getting any punishments or whippings every single night. If you do all the assignments that you were told to do, you will be victorious.
What are you most amazed by technology?
I'm just a little curious about AI. People saying there's some good side of AI, and then you have some of the bad side of AI. Now, I didn't know what AI was all about. And there was this movie that came out around 2008 or 2010 called AI. When you see humans and then they're like robots. So then when I got taking up these AI classes from the Department of Labor, and then I got to start learning about all of this technology and what you're seeing now. You know, once I was laid off from CBS and I was looking for different jobs and there was no jobs available because of AI. So as I said, there's some good side of it and there's some bad side of it because I got to learn not only AI, but ChatGPT and then Copilot, which is on everyone's computers. So I was kind of messing around with Copilot, and I would ask Copilot, tell the audience about my podcast, the Black Soul Music Experience podcast. And then the whole information had popped up in 60 seconds.
I was kind of impressed with that as well because, of course, I looked you up. Yeah, AI is bonkers in a good way and a bad way because it helps so many businesses. It helps so many entrepreneurs. It helps so many job seekers. But I, and like you, come from the generation of Terminator. So there's red flags here and there. I heard today that some AI hacked a system that they were engaged in, and that's kind of disarming for me. But as a whole, AI got it popping. You just gotta show discernment. Some people are gonna abuse it, like everything else, but for the most part, it's helping a lot of people. You just gotta use common sense. Common sense is a factor too. I said discernment, common sense. Common sense is key. Like, that's not where you find a girlfriend. That's not where you find a boyfriend. Like, let's keep this in perspective. Let's keep this humane. and maybe things will go smoothly. But I'm not here to judge AI, so that was just my 2 cents. But I do want to get into your podcast. Finally, let's talk about that. What inspired you to create the Black Soul Music Experience?
Well, my inspiration of that was this was the first time that I was doing a music podcast. Out of all the podcasters I've been watching on YouTube, you see like adult entertainment and news and things like that. So before I was laid off, I participated in the CBS People Development Program. So while I was waiting for a DJ gig, I was in the office with my supervisor and my coworker that we loaned over for Showtime, and podcast was on the list. So my supervisor said, "You have a voice for it, you should sign up." So then after the meeting, I got a text from my paternal cousin, and he's in the music business. I haven't met him yet, and he suggested me that I should do a podcast. So I had to pitch in an idea, and I just named it the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. So then I was asking my coworker, what product you use? He said Spotify. So ever since October 2021, I would tell my audience on what the podcast is all about. It's about genres of Black music. And my influence was the late Frankie Crocker. And he played everything on his show. He didn't care it was white, Black, Latino, Asian, or Caribbean. So I just kind of like dusted off from him. So on my podcast, I would interview genres of Black music. But before that, I was playing music, the first 2 seasons of Music and Talking. But then when season 3 came, I finally got a hold of some guests that I would interview on my show. And yes, I delved into some hot topics. For example, I did an episode on Blacks and country music, and that was the talk of it. That was a hot button topic. So I did an episode on that part 2, season 2. Music, everything from Beyonce to some other unknown singers like DeFord Bailey and Cleve Francis and those ladies, Chapel Hart and Second Chance, and now do a little experiment. Throw in some little Nas X, throw it in with Jerry Reed and Johnny Cash and Dolly Parton and Savannah Dexter, and then close it out with singers who crossed all genres. And like I said, it was a hot button topic, and yes, I stepped on everybody's toes, including the you-know-what in politics, because country music was known for its platform from Nixon to you-know-who in the White House right now as we speak. Mm-hmm. So as I can see, there was stuff that needed to be talked about. And then for season 3, I got a chance to interview some of my CBS folks. One of them was a lady that I delivered packages to who worked in the photo department. But when I saw something on YouTube that she was a singer back then, so I said, come on, be a guest on my show. We don't know everything about you. And yeah, I've interviewed some of our Truman classmates. A couple of them were DJs. And I also interviewed some of my family relatives. And one on my late father's side of the family is a musician, and she's a member of the Recording Academy. Her name is Tammy Harper. On my late mother's side of the family, I have a cousin that I didn't know, and I got a chance to interview him on season 3, and his name is Kurt Jones. He was in the band called Slave back in the mid-late 70s, and I had him for season 5, and we're meeting for the very first time face to face. So that was an eye-opener. And he went to Dayton, Ohio. He got a chance to meet Sugarfoot of the Ohio Players. But my podcast doesn't stop there. I delve into some other issues because music play a part in everything. Music play a part in education. I did an episode on that, which is why music education is important. I did an episode on music playing a part in fashion and the arts, because when we watch the VMAs or the BET Awards or the Grammys, you'll see some of our favorite singers marching down the red carpet. And sometimes you'll see some singers wearing something unexpected that may be too hot for network or basic cable television. And music playing a part in social issues. I delve into some hard topics, including I've interviewed a singer who was a singer-songwriter, and she was a domestic abuse survivor. And another one I interviewed was emergency preparedness. This was new. It was not talked about because, yes, music play a part in that. Think of Marvin Gaye when he did Mercy, Mercy Me, The Ecology. We're dealing with climate change. And then the Tramps had that song, Well, Where Were You? That the lights went out in New York City. I said to myself, who came up with that song was based on the blackout? that took
I
place.
I knew you were going to say that.
In 1977. And then we delved into some hard topics, and I did an episode on songs that's dealing with mental illness. And yes, it played a part in that. I would think about some of those songs that were used for those PSAs. Like, for example, The Sounds of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel. Mm-hmm. That song was later used in that PSA called Closer Look. And I looked at those PSAs, and Closer Look was an organization that is helping children with special needs. And I recently did a Dr. King episode because ever since I started doing my podcast, I always leave something on the side. I do a Dr. King episode, Black History Month, Women's History Month, Valentine's Day episode, Hispanic Heritage Month episode, and some Black Music Month episodes. And I did Mother's Day and a Father's Day episode. So me growing up, when you have those days off, and you should have something on, because that was me growing up, when we all know that Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's are automatic, but you also need episodes for Dr. King Day as well as Mother's Day and Father's Day. So on my podcast, we just wrapped up season 5. We did 230 episodes. We did bonus episodes, and we also did an Asian American Music Month episode.
That's what's up.
And not only that, I got a chance to interview a singer coming out of Iran, and we met on LinkedIn, and I didn't know that that singer was from Iran. So that's the same Iran that we dealt with those conflicts for years. But you don't hear any good news coming out of Iran. We don't know there's any singers or actors or actresses. So I face no fear. I've interviewed that lady, and I aired that on her birthday, November 29th. Just in time for Thanksgiving. So there's some good sides of it, but you know, there's not that much positive in everything. And yes, I got a chance to did some other things, including artists of why are not paying close attention to record labels when it comes to marketing and promotion. And maybe that's the reason why you see some of the major artists like Alicia Keys and Sheryl Crow and Taylor Swift. They're no longer on the major record labels. They're gone independent. And we're in a post-pandemic AI world that singers are doing their own thing without having the record CEOs dictate to them and saying, you can't sing that song and you can't collaborate with that other artist. So you have artistic freedom and creative control. And I've interviewed all of the independent artists from hip hop and jazz and Caribbean and Afro beats. So that gives me an opportunity to interview everybody, not just here in the U.S. I've interviewed some artists. I mentioned Iran, but also from Africa and the UK and the Far East for the first time. You just got to get up early in the morning, because when I was a CBS employee, when I see those news reporters, when they had to report on those countries overseas, it's like a 6-hour difference. So with my podcast, it gives you everything. I've interviewed a diversity of singers who are influenced by Black music.
It sounds like we have a lot of content for all of us to go through, so I'm excited. How do you decide which artist deserves the spotlight?
The artists that deserve who gets the spotlight, okay. I mentioned Nili Haghani. That's the lady from Iran, because I was saying to myself, let's interview this singer. And like I said, facing no fears, interviewed that lady. And also I've interviewed Miss Tammy Smith. That's the one from Arkansas who was a domestic abuse survivor. So I got a chance to get a hold of them. And when I'm on Alignable, I get a chance to juggle around who can I interview on my podcast, whether it's on Alignable or LinkedIn. And also one more thing, I got a chance to interview this lady who works at a production company that takes care of singers, who does movie and TV themes, because you know, us Black folks, we don't pay close attention to the credits, especially when you at a movie theater. You say the movie's over with, time to go. And then the same thing on television. Change another channel. So for me growing up, I always like to find out who did what on those shows, who did the music, because you never know, your favorite TV show or movie could be a top 10 hit on Billboard's Hot 100 Pop Singles charts. So me growing up, that's very important, because when award time comes, you never know who did what, who did the music for that artist? Who took care of the different tracks that made the song funky? And for TV, who did that theme song that attracts the listener and the viewers? So those are some of the things that really picky on who can I pick to be a guest on my show.
I agree. It's important to pay attention to the credits. I only know that because I work in film and TV. So you do have to see who is running the show, who's the producer, who's the executive producer, who's the cinematographer, who's the production assistant. And all of those play a key factor into making a successful movie. So I agree with you on that aspect. What music from Gen X era do you think deserves more recognition today?
You know, I'm a 70s man, so I would say like funk and disco, especially funk music like George Clinton and also Donna Summer, disco. You know, never heard of that genre before. Ever since the late Frankie Crocker played Donna Summer's song, Love to Love You Baby, and the first time I heard it is in 18 minutes. So not that much disco stars out there, but those are the two things, you know, really resonates, and that's funk and disco.
And I agree with you, and my episode 8 of my podcast is dedicated to Donna Summer, the Queen of Disco. So everybody check that out. And Love to Love You Baby was, I think, 17 minutes and maybe 30 seconds. But producer from New York heard about her over in, I believe, Germany. It wasn't hitting. It kind of hit in Germany, but he brought it over here and played it at a party. And after that, it was a wrap. This is where we have Donna Summer today. Queen of Disco. I love her with all of my heart. And it was just an honor to do her episode.
Speaking of Donna Summer, I got a chance to see her. And when I was coming back home for Virginia, Father's Day weekend, 1999, and I was leaving work, and there was a line at Coconuts, later FYE, on 6th Avenue and 51st Street. Someone was online to see Ginger Spice of the Spice Girls for her solo LP. And then coming out of nowhere, someone said, "Yo, Donna Summer is in town." I said, "Donna Summer is in town?" I said, "Psych! I'm going to see a legend. Ginger Spice can wait for later." But exactly. I went to HMV on 5th Avenue. You had to get online, and you had to buy an album of Donna Summer. So I bought the VH1 Live and More version. And when I saw Donna Summer, I got her autograph on the LP. I still have it as of today. Kept it in good faith. It's in the record thing, and wow. And then by the time when Donna Summer passed away, and then she got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I got a chance to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Museum. Everybody is there, including Donna Summer. So that was a wonderful experience.
I'm sure it was. Donna Summer was just a legend. After interviewing so many musicians, what have you learned about people behind the music?
What I've learned about people behind the music is mostly the producers and mostly the singers, because they have a story to tell. It will be like relationships, or someone that you lose, someone in life, or if it's coming from today's headlines, maybe a little controversial, but they have a story to tell and they would like to share it with the fans. And especially with the musicians, what they play behind the scenes that makes the song or the album successful.
If you could preserve just one lesson about Black music for future generations, what would it be?
I would tell the future generation, I will tell them, pay close attention. Look at some of the legends of the past that made Black music great. And when we have Black History Month at my church, we will talk about some of our favorites. And especially our seniors, they would, I would sit with them, they would play either Louis Armstrong or Duke Ellington. And then my late mother would have a Gloria Lynn album, and I would pay close attention to the background and the strings and everything. And being dropped off at every babysitter, my grandfather had that Isaac Hayes LP. He pulled it out and played the heck out of it. And I mean, when you get to the rapping, I said, enough of the talking, get to the singing, and stretched it from a 3-minute to an 18-minute song, and then dropped off at my maternal aunt's apartment. She would play gospel music all day, from James Cleveland to Shirley Caesar to all the choirs and quartets. And the same thing for a friend, they would play jazz. Everything from Herbie Mann to Dave Brubeck to Roy Ayers. These are some of the legends that we cannot forget. And to the younger generation, there's a lot of things that you can learn about from these legends. And as I said, I would play all genres of black music. I still got some of the greatest legends. Today's music, that's fine. There's some artists that I do like, but there's nothing compared to some of the music that I was brought up with. And my youngest niece, she listens to some old school, whether it's Michael Jackson or Prince or maybe some movies that had Sidney Poitier or Harry Belafonte. You know, she's old school. But my oldest niece, she was into today's hip hop and R&B. So it's kind of like a generation gap. When you have black music that you can preserve to and pass it on and share it with your family and pass it on for generations to come.
Thank you for that transparency. Tell me about a time you realized life wasn't easy. How did you react?
Well, what I react was looking for a job and getting laid off from a job. What was my reaction? Is like saying, I can't find a job and then being laid off from a job. I was like so upset. You know, I got no place to go to look for a job. Because like we talked about earlier, that was some of the reactions that I was like, if the company would have given me more time and, you know, I was getting ready to leave that job because my salary was like, you know, from 2023. And then when you hear about all those mergers, and I said to myself, I wanted to leave out of here before that company had laid me off to give me more time. So that was some of the reactions, you know, looking for a job. You got the job and then you got laid off from a job.
What are some of your favorite moments in life?
What are my favorite moments in life? Going to family reunions. And this was the first time that was one of my favorite moments. The first time I went to a family reunion was Memorial Day 1982. I was spending time with my paternal grandmother, lives in Harlem. We went to the first Wilson Dix family reunion out in Queens. Now, there was something that she didn't talk about her first husband, my paternal grandfather, because it was never talked about or being left out, being void. So I got a chance to see my paternal grandfather, but we didn't say hi face to face. And I didn't see him again until at my grandmother's funeral, Mother's Day weekend. So then I see some more relatives on my late father's side of the family that I never knew. So that was some of the best moments that I've seen. And like I said, I've been to family reunions on my late father's side, and I never knew who I may bump into. Someone in my family is a musician. Someone in my family worked in the media, and someone in my family was a teacher in education, and someone in my family was in politics. So I was very glad that I come from my late father's lineage that represents the ministry, the media, education, and politics. And still up to this date, I share that with my two nieces, and I tell them, Cousin Sam, Uncle Sam has a cousin that made America great.
Is there anything that you wish you could redo?
Anything that I could redo? I could have redo those paintings that I did when I was little. Remember back in the days we had those color by numbers, those pencils from back in the day. That's something that I could have redo because I was very good at those colors, but off by hand, not that much. So that's something I do a little redo.
What is something common back in the day that you rarely see today?
Those platform shoes. Those were the things that were coming back. Some of the stuff that I saw in the 70s, they came back in the 90s. I've seen the ladies wearing those big platform shoes, them big high heel shoes. Those are the ones that were coming back. And those jeans that kind of ripped up those jeans, those holy jeans that came out in the 80s. And then all that time when mom always liked to check those dungarees, and they'll probably say, Sam, you're not going out in the street like that wearing those dungarees with holes in them. Who would never knew that style would have resonated that came in the 90s, the same time as those platform shoes made that comeback from the 70s.
What are some of your favorite quotes?
Some of my favorite quotes. You know, I never had any of those favorite quotes growing up. So the only quotes that I liked was Dr. King. It's like, justice is injustice to everyone. And we all know Malcolm X's slogan, by any means necessary.
Facts all day. Want to shout out anybody in the community making a change?
I want to give a shout out to our New York mayor, Mondani, making a change. And as a Democrat supporter, that's what Democrat socialism should be doing. What is the symbol of the Democrat? Helping the poor and the middle class, those who trying to make ends meet, and those who trying to make something for a living.
Where can people connect with you and see your content?
All right. They can look for my podcast, the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. You can look for me on these platforms. I'm on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and Pocket Cast. And for those who like to make a donation to my podcast and keep it going, look for my podcast on Patreon. And be sure to look for my video podcast episodes on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/The Black Soul Music Experience. And for a special bonus, I just did a spinoff and I just branched out to Substack, where I do my Black Soul Music Experience podcast reports. So you'll be seeing or hearing those reports in the near future. This is where I do for major upcoming events, where I'm going to do my DJ gigs, what's going to be on the next episode of my podcast, and for breaking music news.
Can you explain to us? I was listening to one of your episodes earlier. What is Substack?
Substack is a new platform that has just been happening for 2 years. And when I saw it on my YouTube channel, I've seen some of our former news reporters, if they were on CBS or NBC or ABC, and either they gotten, laid off. Now I see those, they are popping up on Substack. So I see Jim Acosta, who once was on CNN. He's the reporter who was asking Trump the toughest question. And then Trump said, "You're a fake news reporter. You shouldn't be working at CNN." So then CNN was trying to give Jim Acosta different times, but he said, "I quit." So that's why he's on Substack, and Katie Couric is on Substack. And then I'm following this young lady that I saw on my Facebook homepage. She's the lady who has that heavy makeup and eyelashes and the nose ring and the pointy fingernails. You can slash somebody. And her name is Monet Mader. And she was a former Republican supporter, a former Trump supporter. And she has a podcast called Flipping Tables. And a couple of weeks ago, I see her doing something on Substack called Yesterday's News. She's doing the top stories that is coming from AP and United Press International, not Fox News. So you get the real scoop. And then, yes, so also Midas Touch Network. And yes, Katie Couric. Sometimes you see her on Substack. She once worked at MSNBC. She was an attorney, and she had her own show on MSNBC. So both Katie Fang and Joy Reid were fired. So Katie Fang is on Substack and on the Midas Touch Network. And sometimes Don Lemon from CNN, he has his own platform, and he is on Substack as well. So when you're going to see those orange background, like a ribbon or anything like that, you're going to be seeing some former news reporters, as well as some of the others like Monet Mader and some of the other folks that, on the Midas Touch Network. You're going to see branching out those things, or what are they doing, some live news events or some other stuff that they didn't get a chance to do, or some things that corporate media will not tell you. And that's what Substack is all about. They're branching out to different platforms.
Samuel, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I had so much fun, and you've taught me some things. I'm looking forward to hearing more of your podcast. You had so many guests on there. I didn't even know who to choose. I clicked on one randomly. I didn't know it was your cousin, but you had your cousin on a couple of months ago, and it was nice hearing about how you reconnected with family that you never met. I really liked your episodes on up and coming and what's new, keeping us in the loop on people that we admired and grew up listening to. It was just a pleasure. Again, I thank you for being here. I'm wondering, the Twilight Zone is a big deal for me. I want to maybe have Twilight Zone fans come in and we just share ideas on about an episode that we might watch. would you be open to coming back to be on one of those episodes and participating?
Yes, I would love to.
I would love for you to be here. You just taught us so much stuff, and over 200 episodes is an inspiration for me. So I know that I'm going to strive to get there and go past that. And I thank you again, and I will be in touch with you.
Yes, and one more thing.
Yeah.
They can look for my website, the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast.com.
.com. Got it. And I will make sure that it is included. I appreciate you, and I will talk to you soon. Be blessed.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you. Woo! Y'all already know I could talk about music all day. Samuel, thank you so much for hanging out with me and taking us down that musical memory lane. And if this conversation reminded you of a song, an artist, an album, or maybe even a whole damn chapter of your life, go listen to it. That's what I love about music. One song can take you right back. And that's exactly what we do here at Gen X Gonna Give It To You. We remember, we reminisce, we laugh, we tell stories, and we keep the culture alive. So make sure you check out the Black Soul Music Experience podcast and support Samuel and the work he's doing to preserve the history of Black music. And if you've enjoyed this episode, you know what to do. Like it, share, follow it, subscribe. Send it to somebody who knows that music just ain't the same when you can't hear the DJ say, and this one's going out to everybody. I'm Deshanta, and this is Gen X Gonna Give It To You. Until next time, keep the memories alive, keep the music playing, and remember, Gen X Gonna Give It To You.